I'm Claudia Chan, author, speaker, coach, and champion of the wholeness movement. For over 20 years, I've studied and coached high-achieving people, learning their thoughts and lifestyle patterns. But through their stories and my own journey, I've discovered a profound gap between outward appearances and our inner fulfillment. In the Claudia Chan podcast, my colleague Shannon and I will uncover the invisible epidemic of chronic busyness, endless rumination, or that quiet feeling of unfulfilled potential that many of us bury underneath our accomplishments. You'll learn how to experience the consciousness of each day, transform the pain of hard moments, and discover the alignment that our souls desire. Let's go. So I'm going to pray for us before we begin. Dear Father, thank you so much for this moment in time. Shannon and I have been talking about the podcast and this day for so long and reinvigorating the Claudia Chan podcast. And so much has happened. And we just pray that you be with us to unleash pure authenticity, all the healing, all the stories, all the goodness, and to broadcast that through this microphone into the world and to do good. And thank you for being with us and bringing us together. In your name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, Shannon.
Hi, Claudia.
Wow, we are here, and I am just so grateful for you and all the space that we've been sharing for the last year, but spiritually for years prior to that, and God bringing us together in this work for now the reboot of Claudia Chan podcast. I'm going to just quickly set the stage for the audience here that I've had this podcast for a little while, but we are relaunching it. And all the topics that I've been bringing audiences over the years on conscious leadership, on whole self alignment, on change in the world and leadership. And we're entering a new season as we begin this new year, 2025, and this new quarter of a century at 2025, just to put our goodness into the world. So thank you for sharing the space with me.
Absolutely. It feels so good to be here, Claudia. Thank you. And I'm really excited about how the evolution of your podcast, which is so powerful and impactful to so many, is just going to come to this next phase where there will be even more dialogue and the ability for the two of us to work together to be able to pull more of that out for the listeners. So this is going to be wonderful.
Yes, thank you. So excited.
Absolutely.
So where are we starting here? So because we've probably covered a million topics, in our journey together. And actually, do you want to share quickly your journey with me? Let's do that first before we jump into the first topic.
Perfect. So Claudia, I first met you in 2017, but I guess I didn't really meet you. That was when I was first exposed to you. I was an attendee at the She Summit. And through all of that time, I continued to absorb your content and to be gravitated towards your messages, whether they be emails, newsletter updates, LinkedIn Lives. And I even continued to attend virtual She Summits even after 2017 when I had moved away from the New York area. And then I was fortunate enough to be coached by you just last year. And that was really when I first met you, joined the Claudia Chan Inner Circle, and even had the opportunity to begin working with you to help grow Claudia Chan and She Global. And so we have many different containers and dimensions to our relationship, from She Summit attendee, coaching, inner circle member, work partner, and of course, friend. So your teachings have been so impactful in my life, and it feels so good to be here to have these conversations with your audiences and to help bring all of the goodness that you have in your teachings to the rest of the world.
Yes. It's so amazing and so beautiful how God brings different people together and connects certain people for a purpose and for an intention. And so also context for the audience too, when Shannon and I she hired me as her coach through transitions in her career. And we would have these hour-long sessions, Mondays at 10 a.m. And all of a sudden it would bleed into the Claudia Chan brand, because your background is marketing and branding, working at billion-dollar public brands, huge companies. And as somebody who's always created brands, I always say it's hard for me to do my own brand strategy because I am the brand, and it's hard to look at your brand from the outside in. But we would have these extraordinary conversations, and we were so plugged into our heart, our vulnerability, our soul, and it's in that creativity, that's where all the genius comes out of. And so we said, gosh, wouldn't it be amazing if you did this podcast with me? And that we can just have such a pure, authentic conversation to really replicate that energy. So let's do it. Let's talk about, I guess we both chose some topics. So I'm going to have you kick us off.
Yeah. So today we're talking about this idea of healing selflessness. So many of us, especially women, especially leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, we're conditioned to believe that selflessness is a virtue, so to speak. But when giving to others comes at the expense of our own well-being, our own personal safety, mental safety, health, it becomes self-sacrifice versus selflessness. So today we're talking about how to heal from overgiving and redefine what it means to show up for others without losing ourselves in the process. So maybe to start, Claudia, why do you think, as an anthropologist, somebody who's studied humanity, met with so many people from the She Summit stage to your corporate clients, your coaching personal clients, why do you think that so many people, especially women, struggle with overgiving and self-sacrifice?
I think when we peel back the layers of day-to-day life and existence, I think deep, deep down inside, we are all, as humans, chasing or seeking to establish fundamental worthiness. And worthiness that I'm enough, I'm good enough, I'm capable enough, but also safety and security. And I think that when we peel back all of life, really all truly that we are pursuing, like whether it is a promotion, whether it's an upgrade on our job, on where we live, how we live, it all ultimately comes down to emotional states that we're looking to experience. And we want to live every day with safety, security. We want to feel we're enough. We want to feel we're in purpose. We want to feel confident. So it's really these emotional states. And I think that, and I talk a lot about this in the whole self-leadership curriculum and my core teaching, is that culture and where we are now at 2025, 21st century, beginning of the second quarter, where we are in humanity and in history is we're coming from so much trauma and historical, generational, cultural traumas that we don't realize we're so pulled into the busyness of life, and we get disconnected from our inner selves. And so we are constantly doing, giving, pleasing, unconsciously to feel that more permanent sense of safety and worthiness.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I know we talk a lot about these invisible epidemics that happen, and this just seems like an undercurrent that goes through our society, that it's so much easier for us to give to others than to give to ourselves. And we abandon ourselves. Yet it's just easier to pour into others than to pour into ourselves.
And what happens in that is the more we're waking up every single day and we are doing what we need to do for our family, doing what we need to do for work, and doing what we need to do to pay the bills, and doing what we need to do to show up on time. And what happens is that we get more disconnected with the self. And I think your topic of healing selflessness, or this, how selflessness becomes unhealthy, because it's one thing to give as an individual, like, oh, I'm about service, I'm about caring for others, right? That is a part of being a good human, is to care and give to others.
Absolutely.
But as you said, at the sake of ourselves. And so we end up at a point where we're not doing good for anything. And we need to take those pauses, and we need to make sure that we have the right internal foundation where we're operating each day proactively versus reactionarily, if that's a word.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between proactive and reaction, and energetically. And when I'm reactionary, we're frantic. It's anxious. It is like, get your shoes on, get your clothes on. We're running late to school, or it's, oh, and I gotta do this, and I've got that presentation at 3:00, or got the birthday party to plan, and then versus the, okay, like there's a lot to do, and maybe we'll run late, but that's okay. And I am going to stay calm in this moment. And if shit hits the fan, I'm going to remain calm, and I'm going to regulate myself. I'm going to regulate my kids.
Mm.
And so we want to, as much as possible, stay when we have that time for ourselves, and we put ourselves first before taking care of everybody else, then we can be more full to be proactive. And I think that we're living now culturally, as I look at families, as I look at corporate leaders, as I look at people, I think that more and more we're at a time where chronic busyness is the invisible epidemic. And we're going on months and years without that pause, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. When you talk about the difference between reactiveness and proactiveness, I think intentionality. So how can we, as a culture, whether it's your family culture, your corporate culture, how can we be more intentional with, that self? Or
so you're asking me, how do we find the pauses or prioritize ourselves a little bit more so that we can be proactive in family culture, workplace culture? And, I have this analogy that people, like when I work with people and in my journey in myself all these years, and I turned 50 this year. So it has been several decades, 25 years of entrepreneurship and of creation, but also creation and learning of myself. We don't realize that when we're in the pursuit of life and what we call success, whatever success means to you, that it's really less about chasing the thing that we're trying to create. And it's actually more about how the journey of chasing and creating it shapes us. We, as humans, this spirit and soul, if I get to live to 90 years, that's 90 years of a spirit and soul that's on this planet, on this earth. And really, my life is a journey of becoming and aligning with my truth and my potential and my purpose. And so I am the canvas and the art and the creation. And what happens is that in pursuit of the selflessness and the giving and the creating and the doing and the doing and the efforting and the efforting and the efforting, which becomes chronic controlling and anxiety, and which is where we are now in this time in history, is that we just get so detached from that spirit and really who we are becoming. And so what I tell my clients is that there's a universe inside of you. There's a universe, an endless, limitless set of possibilities and unknown unpredictability, and what our job here is to discover ourselves and to create out of it. And so when it comes to, I think in the sort of day-to-day, it's February 2025 right now, and we're coming off the holiday season. We're coming off, January was crazy with the LA fires, and Florida, where I live, is still recovering from all the hurricanes. And, you know, I know that with a second and third grader, we just got through Valentine's Day and my daughter's birthday. And just, life is always going to be busy. But what happens is in that busyness, we start burying things that bother us. We start burying things that we have anxiety about. We start avoiding things that we know we should be doing, but not. We are further ignoring and neglecting maybe something that we really need, that we're not getting. And what happens is that in that process of being selfless or not taking care of yourself, not listening to that organization, that universe inside of you, and instead of like working on things outside of you, but to work on you, by not doing that, you know, we are basically living without roots. You know, we're not rooted to our true selves. And I think that that's where we need to really, to solve all this, we really need to start prioritizing ourselves through spirituality, through meditation, through quiet time, through slowing, through saying no to things, and spending more time with ourselves and going on the journey within to further understand ourselves.
Wow. Is it almost like if somebody has this selflessness to the point where it's becoming disruptive in their life, it's more than just the normal giving of being human, that it could be a sign of something deeper within them that is underlying and needs to be healed?
Yeah, I think that you know, and I get this question a lot when I speak at events, is you're not in alignment when your day-to-day quality of daily life experience is not good, where you get triggered a lot, where you are ruminating a lot. And this is what we call, you know, as you know, you've been in the work with me and helping me co-create the curriculum, is it's the invisible epidemic symptoms. You start beating yourself up when, like, randomly, you start ruminating. You know, you have a social engagement with a colleague or a meeting or a mom at school, and you just find yourself wondering what they're thinking about you, wondering whether or not you did something wrong, or you seem too much, or you seem too little. You are beating yourself up because you can never measure up to the expectations you have for yourself. And so the daily, again, we are made up, the daily experience is, they say, up to 60,000 thoughts a day of just things that you're saying to yourself and thinking. And that creates emotions, that creates feeling. So if you're feeling low energy, low vibration, if you're feeling constantly anxious, if you're feeling uncomfortable just taking a break, taking a nap, sitting down for quiet time. You know, there's so many people who are hyperactive and like they need to be busy in order to feel safe and in order to feel normal. And so there's all these signs. Those are all symptoms and signs that something is not, there's stuff inside that needs to get taken care of.
That's good.
And it's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in your bank account. It's going to show up in I call them little bombs that sort of go off, you know, either inside of you or in your home and family culture. And it's just like anything else. When you don't, it's just something that starts brewing, you know, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But because it's silent, we neglect it and we move on with life. And there are people who are in decades and decades of living a certain way that are unaware that there's brokenness inside that has to get healed.
Absolutely. So someone who is giving to others, they're putting others before themselves, and themselves as a person is starting to suffer. What does that look like?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, let me give you some examples, even just going through people that I know or people that I currently work with or have worked with. It could be somebody in a corporate career who's in a senior position who is in a position where things feel fine and things feel stable. There's no burnout, but then there's this feeling of lack of potential because, well, they're so focused on caring for everybody else. Like whether it's a male or female breadwinner, I have those types of clients where, you know, they show up to provide the paycheck to take care of their family, but then it's all about serving others, but then there is passion or purpose inside of them that they want to pursue, but they feel like, oh, I can't do that because I have to maintain what I need to currently maintain to take care of everybody. It could show up in that capacity. It could show up in, you know, we've talked a lot about burnout, and burnout is a major topic right now in culture. But for me, the term drives me a little crazy because it's so broad. Burnout, yes, it could be you're overly stressed and you're overly working and overwhelmed and doing and busy, but it could also mean unfulfilled potential. It could also mean, you know, the lack of purpose. I mean, I see certain people sometimes, even like parents at the school, where they're so good with the parent, they're homeroom moms, but I see them and sometimes I feel like life is missing from their face and their energy. And it is, you know, I think there's a lot of parents who will take that pause, especially mothers who will take that pause to take care of their kids. But you can see that they had a whole career, they had a whole education and a whole college degree that is not being utilized inside of them right now. Like as human beings, we are the mix and the intersection of so many different pieces of us and dimensions of us. And sure, I want to be a mother, I want to be a wife, I want to be a friend, but I also have vocation and I have calling and I have art and I have creation inside of me. So there's certain people out there that are just suffering from, I'm giving and taking care of everybody because that's what, you know, a 45-year-old mom should be doing right now with little kids in elementary school. But maybe selflessness can also mean, wait, there's something inside of you that is giving you a low-level depression or making you ruminate more because something's unfulfilled inside of you. So those are just some examples, and I have many more if you need more.
No, that's the underlying invisible epidemic, but you see it, even though it's this underlying current. For those who are looking, you can see it. You can see that selflessness coming through. And at what point do you see or have you seen it become unhealthy? So sometimes you mentioned they could feel fine, like, but there is that nagging little something inside. But then there's also the point where it becomes too much.
It's really insane. I mean, having been at 50, my years 43 to 47 were the worst years of having gone through that experience for me. And, you know, by the way, and we always say that I've created in my 25 plus years of entrepreneurship and creating social community platforms, and many that have centered around women and I think some people are new to me, some people are not, but like the She Summit conference you mentioned, or prior to that, the Shecky's Girls Night Out platform that I had, or the leadership book and trainings that I've done. But I've always created things out of my own experience, but also from the anthropologic, is that how I'm saying the word right?
Yes, the anthropological.
Yes. But I've been an anthropologist of people. And I've really always, like, my learning, some people go get MBAs and some people go get their degrees. And my master's and business degree was being with people and connecting with all kinds of people. And I live my life in many ways externally. And if you know me, you know that I think out loud. If I am going through anything, I share it. I want you to share it with me. And so, but in monitoring people, which then of course inspired me creating social events for people, creating leadership conferences for people, then creating curriculum and this whole self coaching work. Because I really just became obsessed around personal development and spiritual growth, because that was my own experience in seeing and connecting with people's inner selves and their souls. And you know when it's really bad when the emotional states that you're in, you know, you're living in an anxiety. Anxiety is very of the worrying of the future, like the what ifs. So either you're in that sort of anxious state, which is more future oriented, or you're living in the low vibration of almost depressive states, like a depression state. And they're cousins of each other, where maybe you're always feeling bad about yourself. It's more low vibration and low energy. And it's almost two different sets of negative self-talk, what I call CLT's, core limiting thoughts. It's either, oh, I should have done this, or I always da 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 da, and but this negative thing, but it's just this negative punishing of yourself. And so I feel like that is more the depressive state versus the more higher energy of worry and fear of the future, the what ifs, what if this happens, and constantly being on alert and thinking and like unconsciously believing there's a bear outside the window, or you need to disasterize or catastrophize in order to feel safe and normal. And so what happens is it's at some point you're going to break down, like, and I always say they call it breakdown to break through. Either it's going to get so bad that you cannot tolerate it anymore, that you have to go find a therapist or a coach, a shaman, like whatever it is for you, that at a certain point you go out and you seek help, right? Some people just go get medicated and that's the solution. Or, but you go on this inner journey, like, I cannot sustain this anymore. And it's interesting what's visible and what's invisible. Because obviously if the pipes are going to burst in your house and your floors are flooding, right? It's visible. Or if your kid is getting bullied at school and you're getting a call from the principal, like, it's visible. But the invisible stuff, it's just as serious, but we tend to bury it and we tend to just then grab the cocktail at 4:00 or, you know, let's binge watch Netflix or scroll social media, right? There's just so many things that we're doing to numb or self-soothe, but you know it's really bad when the day-to-day experience of those negative emotional and cognitive states are negative.
Yes. Oh my gosh, definitely. So when these symptoms, you mentioned, you know, the rumination and the vibration and those inner thoughts, they're all things that people can't see. They're all things that are invisible. So what should you do if you're somebody who feels like this? If you're somebody who's listening and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is me, I am in this state. Should they bring this up? Should they vocalize it? Should they take it from that inside to the outside?
Yeah, well, I always say that because, you know, at Claudia Chan company, we are, so much of what we do is create is community driven and also content driven. And I always say that, you know, everything you desire and everything that we want to experience lies in two things: the content you coach yourself, like the content that you're telling yourself, which creates, again, the emotional states, and it's your community. And so, first of all, any person, I think one of the biggest societal problems we have is we work so hard to look perfect on the outside. And meanwhile, actually, the more successful people are, quote unquote, like maybe the fancier title you have or the nicer things that you have or the more expensive zip code that you're in, I find, because I work with high achieving people and high capacity people, and I find that the more successful people are, actually, the more of a hot mess is inside. the more stuff gets buried, the more you can get so caught up in trying to maintain this perfectionism and this impressive facade and external, outside in view of who I am and who my family is and, what we're about. And so, but we need to unload what's inside of us. And it's interesting because when we do get triggered, we think that in a negative way, we think that being alone and isolating is going to be more helpful, when in fact it makes things worse, because the more you're in your own thoughts, the more the thoughts are out of control. And it's like you need to pop the bubble and you need to get stuff onto the table and you need to share it with somebody that you trust. And so a lot of people will go to a therapist because that's what culture tells you, like, just get a therapist. And I love therapy. I did years and years and years of therapy and all kinds of therapy. But I think therapy, what I found is it's limited, because first, I think that when we're going through a lot, because you can't give that to your spouse, you can't give that to a sibling or a parent or a child, or a best friend, because nobody can handle that much. Mm-hmm. You're crossing their boundaries. Like, you're giving them your bag of shit. It's like, let me come over to your house, like dump all my laundry and then leave and keep my laundry in your house, right? And then you got chaos and you've got all this negative energy around you. And so we've got to be really thoughtful about what we are giving to our friends and family. And so then you hire a therapist, and of course there's accountability in that. You're paying money to do that so that you're showing up to your sessions. But then at first, they're just validating your thoughts and your feelings. They're just saying to you, yes, you feel seen, you feel heard. So those first set of sessions are all about just being validated, seen, and heard, and having the space to unload with a trained, non-biased professional who's going to be on your side. And so that is a great first step. But I think that, we hear about mental health all the time. We've been hearing about it for decades. I mean, the Surgeon General recently announced that parental stress is a national health concern. Yes. Prior to that, it was just mental health in children and our teens and our youth. I mean, at what point, and of course the world, it's like one bomb after another, with natural disasters to political, social news and cultural events, global events, economic stress. I mean, it's how much can people take between what is invisible and what is buried at home and in themselves, plus the news. And so therapy is only going to get you so far. So the way that we have biohacking, like, is so much of my work is helping you. It's like, take my decades of pain and suffering and having to do it the long and hard way, and like being so passionate about creating this curriculum, creating this whole self alignment, just content and tools to help people get there faster.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know firsthand. You went through it. You still go through it, right? Even in listening and having these conversations, it just gets us into our consciousness.
Yes. Yes. That's the shift. That's the paradigm shift. When you go from the rumination and the listening to yourself, whether it's the pressures of, I need to do this for the kids, I need to do this for the team, I need to fill in the blank, doing all of those things for others, and moving to the telling of yourself, or the talking to yourself of, well, first I need to do these things to make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
I
want to give you a quick analogy too, so I moved to Tampa, Florida, born and raised in Manhattan, lived in New York, the Northeast, 47 years of my life. Like, it was basically New York City, and then the kids were born in the Hamptons, and we lived in Westport, Connecticut. And then at 47, I always say my son's turning 10 this year. So 10 years of parenting. I had kids at 40 to 50. This last decade, where typically from 40 to 50, most families are like in one house, like one city, maybe one or two jobs, right? I've lived the most non-traditional. We've lived in, like, I don't know, we've moved 5 times in the last 10 years, 3 different cities, 5 different actual homes. I mean, two entrepreneurs, total unpredictability, but the 43 to 47 years of age was really the breakdown to breakthrough. And moving to Tampa was part of my healing journey. I've been here for 3.5 years. And so, but I live in a way now where it's like 80-20 in a day. I have time for myself, which sort of sounds crazy, but it used to be 5% of the day was for myself. But I have a lot of free time and I have a lot of freedom, and I spend a lot of time with God and with my spirit. But I'll give you an example. Our house gets really messy, as most homes do with little children. And my husband loves to do laundry. Like, John loves to do laundry. And I swear, I don't even wear anything. I feel like I wear the same pajamas like 5 days a week just so I don't have to do laundry, you know? And we have this joke that it takes me 5 minutes to get ready. Like, I will be in pajamas all day working. I work in bed, and then it takes me like barely any time to get ready. And I've learned that my time, I really care about making the kids meals every morning for them when they go to school. Like, I pack their lunches. I care about my coffee. I care about making their lunches made. It's not always going to be perfect. They're going to get Annie's mac and cheese or whatever, but there are certain days where they get better. But at least I know what's going into their bodies, and then I can. It's organic, exactly. Organic. And then in the busyness of like, I love my work. I do my work. I flow with the day. But there are times where laundry piles up. Dirty laundry is like piling up to the ceiling in front of our laundry room. But then, and there's a guest bedroom next to it that has all the clean laundry. And there are piles and mountains of clean laundry that need to be folded. I will walk by that room 1,000 times a day and like not have the urge to fold it. And I think my point is that there are times where John puts it on our king bed for me to fold it. I will take a nap. I will take a nap underneath the mountain of clean laundry to be folded, because I prioritize my self-care and time for me more than having folded clean laundry. And the thing is, I can look at it. My unconscious mind will look at it and say, Claudia, you're a mess. Like, this house is a mess. Like, I walk from like my bedroom to the kitchen and say, okay, there's crap all over the floor. Do I want to bend over my back to pick it up? Many times I don't, because I'd rather stay in my consciousness at that moment. And if I'm in my conscious higher level self, I'm like, I'm not attaching my identity. Like, I'm not a failure. I'm not a hot mess because of the mess in my house. But I think what so many people do is they look at that messiness and they jump and they feel like, oh my God, my identity, I'm a mess of a person if I don't have that cleaned up. And they attach their identity to that. And they take away time from themselves. They take away time from, going for the walk outside, choosing that walk for yourself, or choosing to go get a manicure, or choosing to go to the gym, or whatever it is. And so if this analogy makes sense, I see it. I'm reminded of a choice every single day. And of course we clean it up. And yeah, the housekeeper comes every 2 weeks or weekly. But it's just a great analogy of how I'm choosing myself over this perfectionism, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So John likes to wash the laundry. He just doesn't like to fold it, is what I'm hearing.
And he will eventually fold it, because I think he just gives up on the fact of me folding it. But yeah.
I love that, though. I love that they're two separate things. And it's going back to that idea of intentionality. You are being intentional with where you are choosing to spend your time and investing in yourself. The laundry will get done.
Well, and it's also that energy, too, when you see certain people and they're like, when they're taking care of kids, or they're taking care of, you and I both have children between the ages of what, like 8 and 15 or 13 or anyway. But so we're in that sort of like elementary, middle school period. And so we're in the thick of it. But I see so many mothers, working mothers. And by the way, working mother is a full-time mother. I don't know why we even need the term to begin with, but I just see so many people who are always in, it's like they just have that look of catch up. They're never catching up. They're never enough. They always plan to do something, but they get sidetracked by something. Like they always plan something for themselves, but then they get pulled into this. And it's like this permanent state that they're always in. And I'm like, oh gosh, like what is the quality of life that you have like now, right now, like today? Because today is life. It's not tomorrow. It's not yesterday. It's now. And how much are we giving up on to like living our lives in the fullest abundance and beauty of it?
Yes.
When we're just so constantly behind or constantly catching up and reactionary. And there's a better way that we can be living.
Yes. Oh, just amazing. And I so want everybody to feel that, because it feels so good when you do really live and experience that. So how can someone start healing from selflessness without feeling guilty? Is it reframing? Is it boundaries? Is it...
I mean, I think this is where we get into the work that I do, is helping us step out of ourselves. I'll give you the analogy of a corporation, a company. I think most people have worked at a company or work at a company where they're like day to day, there's things that are just happening that are on autopilot or maybe not. But eventually you need to step out of the company. You need to step out of the day-to-day organization, or let's just say you work in a team. Like at a certain point, you need to step out and look outside in and just say, what is not working? What is not, I call it the outside in perspective, or looking at your life, looking at the way you let's just say you're a marketing person, or you're an engineer, or you are a chef, and you need to plan for something. You grab all the insights and the research and the data and the ingredients and the recipe, and then you plan for something. You do that strategic planning. We need to start applying those business skills to our day-to-day. We need to be like tracking that content, those emotions, those patterns, those little blow-ups, those little arguments, the resentment, the bombs that go off, and just say, this is not, am I showing up in who I want to be? Am I modeling who I want to be? And do that outside in view and research, and realize what needs to be fixed, what needs to be healed, what can be better, right? To create the next strategic plan or the next season of life. And we're so busy, again, in the selflessness of just taking care of everything else, and we're not taking care of what really matters first.
I love that. What mindset shifts do you think people can embrace self-prioritization as a strength? So, for example, we talk about culture's view of success and how we almost equate that busyness, that selflessness, to what success looks like today. So how can we shift that perception?
Well, this is where the wholeness movement and what I call the process of getting whole inside really is it's back down to, you and I were talking about how when we're born into this world and into our families, that we're born into messaging, we're born into that content and the community that we're surrounded by, the culture that we're in. And so we're programmed. And so much of us, we don't realize that we're programmed a certain way based on, and it could have been healthy stuff, a combination of healthy stuff and unhealthy stuff. My mom and my brother are actually visiting right now. The Chans are in Tampa, Florida. And I'm always reminded of, God, the messaging that I grew up with. I'm Chinese American. And so I would say that they came to America with nothing, typical immigrant story, and had Chinese restaurants, but like scarcity and survival was so a part of the strategy to success growing up for me. And it's like my way of going into the world and going to college and having a job was always about like survival and prevent tragedy, prevent, just homelessness, like, I don't know, like not having anything, which is basically what they went through in the Civil War in China, when Mao took over China in 1949. But I think that we all every human being has been brought up in a programming, in a story that they tell themselves and about life and about what success means based on their origin story, based on their origin of family and what they came from. But just like we watch television and we watch the news and we're consumed with programming, at a certain point, you need to break away from finding your own truth and know, what do I want to keep? Like, what was the most amazing, the wisdom, the tools that my parents gave me or certain experiences gave me, and what do I want to keep and what do I want to let go of? What do I want to unlearn?
Yes.
And so it is this process of that, and knowing that you have a choice to program yourself a new way. And because what is truth at the end of the day? You think that those unconscious thoughts that you wake up into is the truth. You see that dirty laundry and you tell yourself, I'm just a mess. How can I get this job? How can I get that promotion when I can't even keep my own house clean? That just becomes our truth. And so we're living then in this world where we feel never enough, where we feel constantly behind, and we feel like, oh, when I finally get it together, then I'll be able to X, Y, Z. And I'm working, what I'm doing on helping people with our coaching and our curriculum is to actually invest in the time and the space in themselves to help them define, what does success mean to you?
Yeah.
And it's not this thing. I would say, let go of goals, let go of achievement. We think it's in the achievement, but let go of that and focus more on what you want to experience. Not tomorrow, now. Like, what do you want to experience tomorrow? Why do we have to wait for like when I get that promotion or when we move into a bigger house or when we retire or whatever it is? And you just moved into a new house, right? And you're waiting for all these renovations. Like, it's going to be a journey. It might take a year or two to really get the house the way that you want it.
Yes.
And Shannon just moved from the Boca area in Florida, my Florida neighbor, all the way to, well, not all the way, but you're in Georgia now.
Yes.
And so it is a total shift, but it's like, why not enjoy the chaos and the messiness that is now?
Yes.
As opposed to waiting for all the pieces of furniture to be perfect. And that when you do see that hot mess in the corner and the kitchen cabinets that don't make sense, like, find the beauty in that. There is a message there. But having enough time, having enough time for yourself, that in that moment where you're getting up in the morning and you're making your coffee and you see that kitchen cabinet that's not configured the way that you want it because the renovation hasn't happened yet, but you find gratitude, you get into your conscious self. Because in that moment you can say, oh man, like, what did I do? Like, where am I in my life? Why? We can just literally take this into a whole other universe of telling ourselves that we're not enough and we're not good and doubting our choices. And yet in that moment we could do the opposite. And that's a choice. And that is getting conscious of the unconscious.
Yes. Oh, so good.
By the way, are we at an hour yet? Because I don't know. This is our first episode, girl.
I was keeping an eye on the time, and I was just getting ready to wrap us out.
I love our partnership too, because Shannon's 25 years in corporate America, and I am 25 years as an entrepreneur, and you're the structure to my madness. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, are we getting, because our goal is to keep this within the hour, and I'm like, of course she's tracking time. Of course she is.
Yes. No, I was just getting ready to wrap us out, but I loved what you had just said about it all comes back to the consciousness. It all comes back to being able to deliver those healthy messages to yourself versus listening to your unconscious, that dialogue that isn't serving you, that's beating you up, that's
Never
judging
enough.
yourself, right?
Constantly.
So
We all need to reprogram, and we're redefining success in the 21st century. And that is what the wholeness movement is. It's about getting whole inside and defining our own what matters to us, not culture and not what our neighbors or our mom or our dad like told us. It's defining it for ourselves. Because really, at the end of the day, all we can control is ourselves.
Claudia, it almost sounds like one of the best things that you can do if you're a selfless person is to take care of yourself by getting conscious of your unconscious.
Yes, that's right.
So maybe that's step one.
That's right. It is.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks, everyone.